Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming to our audience engagement panel. We have not one, but two panels for you today, so get excited. Also want to shout out to Marty's IMC class for being here, so thank you for attending another TalentQ event. Our panel today is going to be moderated by our own Judy Franks. She is a 23-year veteran of the media industry. So she's a media strategist by trade, but has worked on not only the media side of in-house agencies, but also on the creative side. So she's going to help us today by bridging that gap. She also has been on the top 100 faculty for the undergraduate level at Medill for the last 3 years in a row. So highly qualified to lead us today. And we're going to have two panels, one from 3 to 4 and the other from 4 to 5. And then please stick around and join us. We're going to have a networking session out in the lobby, have sandwiches and drinks, and hopefully continue the conversation. So stick around if you can, and be sure to engage with us, ask questions as we go along, and get as much out of it as you can. So with that, let's give a round of applause to Judy Franks.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, great. If you need for me to speak up, let me know. If you need for me to quit shouting, let me know too, okay? This is a great opportunity for us because while it's kind of obnoxious for us old geezers to tell you war stories, I have to tell you a war story. Because once upon a time, audience engagement professionals weren't called audience engagement professionals. We were called media planners or media buyers, and we sat in media departments of traditional ad agencies, and we spent money and we counted eyeballs. And the creative people called us the number geeks. And we were known as quant jocks. And we were the ones, again, who, like I said, spent money and counted eyeballs. Well, the world has completely changed. The diversity of the industry, what it means to engage audiences, the companies that are now involved in the discipline have literally exploded wide open. So the fact that we are having not one panel, but two panels on this topic is really important for you because the ways into the business are many, and the skill sets that you need to thrive in audience engagement are many. So with that, I would like to have each of our panelists start off by introducing themselves to you, telling you a little bit about the company they work for and what they do specifically in their company. And then if they were to provide an elevator speech on the talents and skills that it takes to succeed in the business today, what would that elevator speech be? So there's no democratic process here. I'm doing it first for the person that my arm will reach. So we'll work down this way. Thank you. I believe you're on.
First of all, thank you, Marty. Thank you, Judy, and Medill TalentQ for having me. My name is Shademan Armstrong. I'm a graduate of the IMC class from 2009. After graduation, I returned to the West Coast, which is where I'm originally from, began my career in social media consulting and analytics. Did that for about a year, moved to an agency, and helped them build their social analytics offering and strategic consulting group before finding my true calling at OMD's Ignition Factory, which is kind of where I wanted to end up in my career all along. Ignition Factory is OMD's creative technology and innovations group. We are responsible for adding creativity to a media plan, bringing in new technology and innovation, and introducing our clients to the wide range of tech gadgets, applications, websites, and funky things that you might find on the web and find interesting. The quick elevator pitch for what we look for, it has been drilled into my head from the chief technology officer down. There is no single way into Ignition Factory. And as a matter of fact, we look for a diversity of talent at even the broadest level. We have a mathematician on staff, people with backgrounds in event planning, really believing that diversity of backgrounds brings a diversity of thought and creativity to the table that we think best fosters our offering and really enhances it for our clients.
Great. Hello, everyone. I am Caitlin Finn. I am an Associate Media Director at Digitas. And for those that don't know, Digitas is one of the largest digital agencies in Chicago. We specialize in digital advertising and marketing, but have definitely expanded our skill set over the years to deliver cross-channel marketing programs for our clients. Prior to Digitas, I worked at Mindshare, also within their media department, and have worked on a variety of clients from Axe through to my current client, which is Whirlpool. From my experience, I have definitely I have always had a passion for the digital and emerging media space, and have focused my career to those areas. And Digitas definitely has helped foster that passion of mine. We're constantly pushing the boundaries and encouraging our clients to take the leap into the digital and emerging space, and we do so pretty flawlessly. So what I would say in terms of getting a jump start on your career within digital advertising anywhere, but specifically Digitas, is I think truly is just an interest and passion for digital media and a true curiosity. I think the biggest piece of advice I can give any of you is just to read what's out there, be on the cutting edge of what's new and next, try new technologies. Don't be afraid to dive right into new social platforms that launch. That's the best way to learn, and that is how you can explain to others and help find ways that brands can actually harness and activate within those spaces. So stay curious, as Steve Jobs would say.
Hi there. I am Azar Ahmed. I work with DDB Chicago. We are a creative shop. We have offices everywhere, but I head up digital operations in Chicago. I probably should have worn purple today. In terms of things that we do, we're an agency that's in evolution, like most general agencies are, known for great storytelling, known for great creative campaigns. The whole Budweiser history was up, and all of these things long before I was there. We have some brilliant creative minds. We're trying to make the leap into storytelling really kind of across the board, and I think our challenges are a little bit unique and actually align quite nicely with what you're doing here, in that we're trying to obviously transition people into more digital friendly media, as well as hiring new talent that is more native to the space. But the one thing that I would say is a lot of us have stumbled into this space, and the thing that we all have in common is that we are, to your point, curious and hungry around what's happening. If you don't have an appetite to read and stay on top of trends, you're going to become a dinosaur very quick in this space, and I think that's really the key thing that we look for when we're bringing people into our organization.
Hi, I'm Hugo Perez. I am a Senior Vice President at Zocalo Group. And funny you say storyteller, because I'm a Chief Storyteller for Zocalo Group. I lead strategy and development for our brands. Zocalo Group is a social media word-of-mouth shop, part of Omnicom, where we like to say the premier social media shop at the Omnicom group of companies. I've been there for several years. I'm an IMC grad from 2006. And prior to being in this space and working in social and word-of-mouth full-time, I like to say that I've been a storyteller from the beginning. I started off as a journalist, spent time at NBC News, and went client-side throughout my entire career. This is the first agency that I landed at. So I spent time a variety of different industries around the world until I figured out, hey, I can work for every industry and have a great time at it. So in terms of what we're looking for passionate people that are engaged in the world, that are stimulated by all sorts of stuff and are ready to bring new ideas, new ways of thinking, that are excited and that can then take all that excitement and contain it and actually say and tell cogent stories in ways that impact brands. And we have all sorts of openings right now, so hit me up if you're interested.
Great. Thank you, everyone. One theme that we've been exploring as part of TalentQ, and really the whole IMC program explores, is the right brain, left brain balance. And I would like for each of you to comment on how both the right brain and the left brain does or doesn't come into play in what you are doing right now? You can start in any order.
Well, since I have the mic, I guess I'll just start off. You know, it's funny, this is an ongoing conversation that happens, I think, in all of our shops in terms of the marriage of creativity and actual rational thinking. And in all the programs that we pitch and that I personally work on, I always challenge my teams to always marry emotional with rational together. Because we live in a world where folks nowadays are not as easily wowed by just you saying, "Ooh, I can build this for you and that'll be great." People have access to technology and can learn and grow and explore things. So you have to take the razzle-dazzle and put some substance to it, you know, some sizzle to the steak. You need the steak part too. You can't just have that sizzle. So it's always important, you know, in the work that we do in this space, to be able to quantify and qualify the things that you are saying that you want to do. And that comes from everything from understanding your competitive space, understanding why it is that you're proposing, what you're proposing, being more than just that substance that's very shallow on top.
You know, it's interesting. I started off, I didn't mention much of my history, but I kind of backed into the whole space. I started off in the technology shops, which were pretty much, you know, largely the right-brained sort of, you know, the left-brained sort of more analytical side of things. We did a lot of things because we could. And I actually went into direct marketing, which is quantifiable, measurable, draft FCBs of the world. And now being on the polar opposite at a creative shop, it's kind of interesting. I mean, I think ultimately you need to find that balance and get to both. I think ultimately my client now is radically different and values things differently than my client 10 years ago when I was on the other side of the brain. But I do think that at the end of the day, people do want stuff that cuts through this tremendous clutter and is creative and entertaining, while at the same time you have some layer of knowing whether or not you're doing it right and improving on what you're doing. If you fall too far one way or the other, you really fall off the rails pretty hard. So.
Yeah, as a media professional, the intro was really interesting because that is, I think, often still how media people are thought of. And yes, we're definitely interested in the numbers. Yes, we look at impressions and deliveries and what % of our audience we're reaching. But there's definitely an art that goes along with the science, and I think that's what really makes a really great media planner a great media planner. When we think about audience, who we're trying to reach and our audiences, I mean, there's definitely a lot of insights and interesting pieces of information that can be pulled out from how your audience is consuming different media channels, what makes them tick, what makes them excited, and from there, that's where you can start to think about what are the best spaces to activate them. I think right now in the digital world, the benefit that we have is everything is quantifiable, everything is measurable, and if you do take a risk and try something new, you can really track its success. Is it delivering on your goals? Can you see that in real time? If it's not, you can definitely optimize into other channels that are. I think the one thing too that is a challenge, and but it's also exciting, is when you do have some emerging medias, you're not always going to have those benchmarks or that those past results. So things like social, spaces like mobile, they're very exciting. There's a lot of activations that are possible there. Consumers are definitely using those spaces, but what is the right way to harness those opportunities for a brand specifically? And that's where I think the art comes in. It really is understanding, you know, what are your consumers doing in those spaces, and then taking a risk with an opportunity to activate your brand there. I think there's, you know, as an example, everyone is probably familiar with the mobile app Instagram. And Instagram was launched, and it was really exciting, and everyone thought that it was going to be the next big thing, and no one's sure how to harness it yet for a brand. And everyone's thinking about how do we get a brand integrated? Facebook bought Instagram, and now there's huge opportunities within Facebook for advertisers to leverage the space. But what's the right way to do that? I think at this point it is a lot of, we call it test and learn. So it is testing, it is learning, and then it's learning from that to inform future campaigns. So I definitely feel that there is a balance with the art and science, left and right brain.
Well, this is a very interesting question for me, considering so much of what Ignition Factory does has never been done before, and very much centers on that creative execution. I can tell you that it's still, even if it's a one-off, never been done before, video and print, the idea that it still needs to be measurable, it still needs to be quantifiable, it still has to have a benchmark. What it won't have, what is most difficult to provide is a key performance indicator to know what success really is in doing things in a creative space. However, going back to my social media analytic days before OMD, I'm going to break a little bit from the rest of the group and say that creativity is absolutely the most important thing that you can have. I say this because everyone has access to the same data. Everyone's looking at the same numbers, and everyone has the same programs to sparse that data. The onus is on you and your creativity to see something in those numbers that nobody else sees and bring that to life for your clients. If you can do that, there's nothing stopping you. But you've got to keep in mind that it's the creative mind that finds that and sees those patterns and brings that to life.
Okay, I have a follow-up challenge for the panel. So do you feel that in order for someone to be successful in our industry, they need to have a balance of right brain and left brain, or is there room in the enterprise for somebody who is brilliant at one over the other? How are you seeing this play out in your organizations?
I think that there are a multitude of departments, especially within OMD and with some of the other agencies, where you can be right brain, you can be left brain, and you can be both. It's my personal opinion that those people that are both, that switch from side to side, are really going to be the most successful, because they are then able to bridge the gap between the two different sides, the creative and the analytic.
Yeah, it's a tough question. I do think that there's room for somebody who's more left-brained or more right-brained, but you know, as was said, I think based on your skill set, the department that you would be a good fit for would definitely be dependent on how you process information. Within the digital space, from a left-brain standpoint, we have a huge crew of analysts at Digitas that really look at what are those key success metrics, how are campaigns delivering on those, what's the right way to optimize the data or the campaigns based on the data that we have. So there's a lot of research that goes into campaigns. Nothing is put in market typically without some way to measure if it's successful or not. So from that point of view, there's definitely room for a left brain processor. However, in that role, the people that I have seen perform and really succeed the most are those people that not only can process the data, but then can share the data out in a visual format that's very easily digestible by somebody who's maybe not so prone to a left brain way of processing information. So there's definitely some, left brain, right brain there. I think across the board, there's definitely creativity in everything that we do in all of our departments, and from a right brain standpoint, I mean, we have brilliant creatives across the city of Chicago is a brilliant advertising mecca, but in Digitas we have great creative leads, and they are definitely more of that creative mindset in the way that they process information, but they're still responsible for understanding the consumer and making sure that our message is delivering against the goals that we are tasked with from our clients. So there's definitely a balance. I think there is some risk involved. You have to be willing to kind of take a stand at times to say this is really what I believe in, whether it's a more creative idea or whether it's a more analytics-driven idea. And you have to wait to see if it plays out when it's actually live. But I do. It's hard to say that you don't have one without the other. Definitely, there's a balance in there. It just might be less than 50-50.
Yeah, I've got. I guess to put it simply, humans are humans, and people are going to have their tendencies one way or the other. It all depends on the shop that you're at, exactly what that mix is. I do feel that as management and leadership, you have to be able to bridge that divide and be able to, balance the left and the right. But depending on how you choose to run things and what your clients are asking for, you're going to tip naturally one way or the other.
What they said.
Great. Okay. I was surprised that when you were going through your elevator speeches, no one said the ability to be a good salesperson. And when I think about what agencies do, we come up with great recommendations, but you're still at the whim of the client, understanding what you are trying to recommend for them. So I'm curious, talk to me about the role of persuasion and the talents and skills. Well, in fact, here, I'm putting words in your mouth. First, I'm assuming that we all agree that being able to effectively sell your recommendations to the client is a necessary skill set, right? Okay, then help us, because that's a great soundbite to say, but what does that mean? So if you were to give our students 3 pieces of advice in terms of how you develop that craft of selling your ideas, what would that advice be? Let's start down here.
Yeah, I think definitely what we do as agency folks, what we do as creatives, as strategists, as leaders in this space is constantly sell the thoughts that we have that makes businesses better. I am constantly challenging, again, my teams to be better merchandisers of what they're doing. Every interaction with a client is an opportunity for them to see you as someone that has something to bring to the table. So we strive not to be, we don't want to be the doers and just the hands and feet. We want to be the partners. We want to be counselors on the side. So we're continually merchandising what it is that we do. So from a simple email to, that PowerPoint deck that you worked on to the report, everything has to have a level of sophistication and of quality to it so that your client is always seeing you as someone that brings something worthwhile. And I think in today's space, again, because of the ability for so much information exchange to happen and so much self-learning, you have to take it that step beyond with the insights, with the direction, with the creativity that lets them see it's not something that they can do on their own. You're bringing that layer, that extra bit of something that they don't have. And that doesn't necessarily mean that every single time you're creating a brand new widget. That just means you have to have that ability to conceptualize something that they're not seeing, that they're not able to pull through on their own, that they're not able to parse through as they look through all their, results, reports, whatever it is. You need to stand out from what it is. And I look at every single client interaction as an opportunity to do that. There's never an opportunity to not be merchandising yourself. And let me just qualify that last thing here. It doesn't mean that you're constantly selling and trying to twist the arm of your client to give you more money. It means that you're positioning yourself as someone that's so valuable that they always want to keep coming back to you. And whenever a new opportunity comes, you want your agency, your team, you to be the person that they say, that's the person we need to reach out, because even if they don't know how to do it, they're going to figure out how to do it, and they're going to bring us something amazing.
I think there's 2 layers of the sell job, depending on the shop that you're at. There's selling it internally and getting people to kind of believe what you believe. It's a little bit interesting when you look at some of the creative shops and the ones that are in transition, because as a specialist, the burden falls on you to be able to articulate and kind of communicate exactly what the benefit is of the idea that you're presenting. So there's that one layer internally where if you're not able to sell it internally, you're kind of useless, at these shops. So being able to speak English, being able to communicate in terms that everybody can understand is essential.
Or Spanish. There's a lot of multicultural.
Or that, yeah. But the other layer, obviously, to the client level, sometimes you're surrounded by good account people, good planners, good people that can kind of play more of the salesy role. But being able to merchandise what you do as an organization is essential. And the more that you can hone those skills, the more you probably have opportunities for career advancement and to be that person on that front line. But again, I find for us, it's more of that persuasion and that education that you have to kind of sell in. Are you valuing digital communication in the way that we as an organization or we as individuals see things going, because I think in the advertising space it is all getting kind of murky and cloudy, and things that advertisers believe are great are probably things that consumers hate. So being able to check yourself and be able to move to a more meaningful space and being able to have your clients go there with you is essential.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything that was said. I think additionally, our clients have really hard jobs. I mean, they're doing a lot of work that's beyond just working with their agencies. And I think from my point of view as somebody who is in a role to sell our services and our work to our clients, it's first of all understanding your client's business as much as your clients do. Being able to speak very eloquently and factually to the state of your client's business is going to really help you position yourself as a partner with your client versus a consultant. I think secondly, it's with understanding your client's businesses, understanding what are those key challenges that your clients are up against, maybe even understanding what those challenges are before your clients come to you with those challenges, so that when you bring these solutions forward, they're very clear, they're very actionable, and they're understandable from your clients. I think there's, in the digital space, new things happening every day. There's new technologies launching, there's new platforms launching, the mobile space is growing by leaps and bounds with new partners coming into this space daily. I think it's hard to know it's hard for brand managers to know how do they activate in the space, what's the right thing to do. So the third thing I would say is you have to have a strategic lens. So based on your client's business, based on your client's key challenges, what is the best way strategically for your clients to activate within the space that's going to help them achieve their business goals, which at the end of the day is selling their products, selling their services, building their brand amongst consumers. So I think having that strategic lens and being able to bring forward your insight that's driven from consumer insights and data to what their brand is imperative to helping you sell through your ideas, your thinking, your agency's expertise.
Well, I'll start with the fact that I don't like the word sell. I prefer to say provide value for a profit. Now, all kidding aside, there are so many levels to providing value in my role. One is letting the internal teams within OMD understand and come to know what Ignition Factory does and our place within the overall structure of the agency in terms of providing that value. The second is then proving to the client the kind of value that we can provide in terms of that next level of thinking. But in terms of a salesmanship role, so to speak, Ignition Factory is really a partnership with clients. We come in at a very early stage. Most of our clients accept that in any space you're going to want to innovate. You want to know what that next thing is. You want to be seen as a leader. And so being able to provide that for the clients inherently provides value and everything they said.
Great. I'm appreciative of the fact that you reframed what is a word, sales, into true value and meaning, which is what IMC is all about. So thank you for doing that. I have one more question for the panel before Randy then is going to facilitate questions from our audience, if that's okay. So here is the last one. We know that the business, even though we all study integrated marketing communications, the business structures around IMC are anything but integrated. When you look at it, we have different types of creative shops, we have digital media shops, we have innovation labs within media agencies. So clearly, again, I'm going to throw another word out there that hopefully we'll all agree, this ability to collaborate with multiple stakeholders and function as a team, even though you are working in a vertical company that has certain profit motives and whatnot. That's a challenge. Describe for our students what skills are needed to navigate the unbundled landscape that you all work in.
If you have an ego, get rid of it quickly. All joking aside, collaboration is key to everything that we do, whether or not it's collaborating as a media agency with a creative agency, with a client, internal teams, client teams within the organization. The ability to work with people, to understand a point of view, and to articulate a point of view, to reach a mutually beneficial outcome is of the utmost importance. I just can't say enough for some of the people at DDB, some of whom are here tonight. Recently worked on a client engagement. There should have been 3 agencies within this engagement. One decided not to participate, so OMD and DDB went through this together. Can't name the client, obviously, but one of the key performance indicator of the project was that the client would actually like one idea that we came up with. Turns out that after the presentation, the client was overjoyed with the result. Now, the plus side is that DDB and OMD can say to the client, we worked on this together, we're behind this, we are both partners, we don't see competition between agencies because we're all in this together. Whereas the agency that decided not to participate looks like a stubborn child. I mean, I don't mean to be rude, but being very territorial has no place in this world because there are, as I mentioned, multiple agencies within agencies and groups and peoples and clients that you have to let the ego go and work together for a common cause.
Yeah, so the full service agency model doesn't always apply, and that's definitely a fractioned environment right now. Working at Digitas, we are full service, but that doesn't mean every single one of our clients prescribes to all of our services. So working in a vertical, you may work with an in-house creative shop or an external creative shop or vice versa. And I think the key really is it's the idea. It's understanding what's that consumer insight and then coming forward with the best idea that both communicates your message as well as reaches your consumer in the right place and the right time. We work mainly in what we call an interagency setting or through what we call an IMC process. So most clients I've ever worked on operate this way, and it's true. There's really no room for egos in the room, and it is a time where you just are as collaborative as possible, bringing the best ideas forward. And at the end of the day, what the outcome is the most brilliant idea that you have for your client as a team. It's not one agency over another. It's not to say that it's not met with challenges. I think working even just in different locations is hard. If you're working with agencies that are in different time zones, that's hard. And I think from my point of view, it sounds very simple, but being able to communicate via email in a very concise way is really going to help you be successful as well. People are reading email on their phones more than they might be on their desktop computers, and being able to communicate very clearly and often, and just keeping the communication lines open is what's going to be key once you have that brilliant, amazing idea.
You know, it's funny. I started when I went into the whole marketing side. I thought I'd do this for about 5-10 years, and then everybody would get digital, and I'd move on and do something else. That was about 20 years ago now that I think about it. I've learned that integration is a means and not an end. I feel like there will always be clients that approach things in a segmented, siloed way. There will always be agencies that approach things that lean a little too far to one or the other side of the brain. But I think that being able to serve that bridge role is essential, and it obviously encompasses all of the things that my fellow panelists said in terms of dropping the ego and being able to transcend. If you can be a translator, you will be a valuable asset because no matter what anybody's telling you, nobody has this space down. And I always kind of laugh whenever I hear things like best practices and whatnot, because it's always according to who. We're defining those with every project that we do every day. So this is an industry that has been and will probably always be in transition. And in that, integration is an essential facet of that transition.
I think the most fun you can have in this kind of career field is when you roll up your sleeves and get around a table and collaborate with everyone together. Recently we worked on this big project. There was 3 different agencies that were collaborating together. We had the creative team, the insights and analytics team, the digital team, the account team, blah, 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 blah. And I was the lead on the team, and I just said, you know what, I don't care what your title is. We all got around one table, put up the whiteboards. Let's just all talk. Let's see what we can come up with together. And I don't care who you came from, where you came from. It's all about the idea at the end of the day. Let's come up with something great. And we had a great time because what ended up happening was everyone was free to just share what was on their minds. And we all helped each other shape that idea to the point that we got to that final nugget of an idea. And then we ended up with like 6 major ideas. And then we could break it apart and say, well, now we know, based on the ideas, that this person that works on digital implementations, you should work on that one. And this person that has that expertise on, that, you should work on that one. But it all started off because we were together. I find that if I like to play in as many different sandboxes as possible, so I try to be like that most interesting man from Dos Equis. I try to have a little bit of everything in my background so that if they say, we're doing a technology pitch, yep, I can do that. We're doing an entertainment pitch, yep, I can do that one. We're doing it in Spanish, sí, hablo español, vamos. So if you want to play in all the sandboxes and have a lot of fun, be a collaborator, get a lot of background and lots of different stuff, try it all.
Great. Okay, now Randy's going to facilitate your questions for the panel.
Do you have any questions? Let's open it up on digital or not all at once. All right. Yes. Fantastic.
Hi, guys.
Well, if you're tweeting, I'm at NewsDude, N-E-W-Z, dude.
Okay, cool, thanks. So I was watching a digital panel not too long ago, and one of the panelists said that digital is not the current thing. Like, everyone always says digital is the future, but that it's not current until all agencies are known as just agencies and not digital agencies. Would you agree with that statement, or what's your take on that point?
Thank you. I'm going to disagree with that, and I'm going to point to an execution that, in my opinion, is one of the things that drew me to Ignition Factory. A couple of years ago, working with CBS and Pepsi, Ignition Factory put the first video player in a print magazine. So the same way that you open up a greeting card that automatically plays music, same concept, but with a video showcasing the upcoming fall lineup and a Pepsi commercial. Thank you. It wasn't me, but thanks. And now the question is that a print execution? Is that a digital execution? Is it video? It's a little bit of everything, and that's not necessarily saying a print agency couldn't have done it that specializes in traditional media looking to draw a wow factor, or it could have come from what would be considered a digital agency. I'm not a big agency, digital agency, creative agency. We're all people, and we all have the same goal in common, which is to serve our clients, and we do that the best way that we can. Whether or not you have one specialty or multiple specialities, or your word of mouth or digital or creative or whatever you are, as long as you're doing it for the client.
Okay. Other questions? Yes. I'll hand it down to you so you can.
Hi, I'm Callie Trowine. We've been told kind of as seniors going through the interview process and trying to get jobs that we have to have a lot of different experiences. Like, you have to be able to do a lot of different things, but at the same time that we should work to be experts at something so that we make ourselves invaluable to a company. How do you do both?
The way I encourage people to do is how do you live your life? If you're living your life where it's in a silo where you wake up and you just go to school and then you go right back home, then you're not having the ability to feed your soul and your spirit with lots of stimuli that gets you out there. So are you reading different things? Are you going to the movies? Are you interacting? Are you volunteering to do things? Are you sitting in on a panel? That's how you get that depth and breadth of experiences, especially at the beginning part of your career. You know, when I was in college, I wanted to be a journalist, and I really wanted to get lots of opportunity to do this, but I was in college, and no news agency was going to hire me. So I said, screw this. I just went and I found a TV studio in my university, and I volunteered to be the studio manager. And what I really wanted was the keys to the shop, because I was there every night making up some new TV project and creating stuff all over the place. By the time I graduated, I had a reel that had all sorts of stuff, and I made it a point to have a variety of different things every month so that I would have a diversity in terms of going into it. The opportunity wasn't there. I created the opportunity for myself. And then I got really good at specific stuff because I wanted to be that expert in certain areas. But now is what I'm telling you, I'm trying to be that those Eckies guys. I'm trying to have lots of expertises. So, but you get that with time as you have time in your life.
You know, I think as a hiring manager, one of the interesting things is, you know, nobody wants to hire that jack of all trades, master of none. You know, I think that when it comes to this space too, you've got to have people that are go-to around certain things. So you've got to find a home, and you're the person that, when I need this, that's the person that does it. With all due respect to my friends and colleagues, when I was at the Martin Agency in Richmond, we did a lot of work with the VCU Brand Center. And one of the things I philosophically disagreed with Mark Avnet, who's a friend, was around the whole creative technology thing. You know, I feel like for me at a creative shop, you know, why not prefix everything with creative? Because that's what you need to be in this organization. So what I found out of a lot of the CT students that I was talking to is, you know, they were good at speaking the technology. They couldn't really build things all that well, and they wanted to be perceived as creatives. But then you talk to the creatives, and they don't particularly, in that subjective role of creative, they didn't find them particularly creative either. So you put yourself in a really bad spot if you're not able to own and bring the heavy on something in particular. So that's definitely something that you need to make abundantly clear.
I think just to build on that too, as you're thinking about a career in advertising and you're applying for different roles and positions, have a point of view as to why you're applying. I think when people are interviewing you, they're looking, they have a big job to do. They have a lot on their desk, and they're looking for somebody who can come in and hit the ground running right away. And I think what gets people, what gets me excited about candidates that I interview is people that are well versed in what we do and what the specifics are that we do. It might not be specifically for our client, but if you're interviewing for a media strategy role, we want to know what you know about media strategy. It doesn't mean that you don't have expertise in other areas, but if that is the role that you're looking to get at the end of the day, we're looking to know that you have a point of view as to why you are the best person for that job, not just because you want to get in the door at XYZ agency. I also think that we're starting to see more and more what your clout score means, and I think we have seen a lot of different shops. A lot that I've read about in New York are hiring interns based on their clout scores. They're not even asking for interviews. So I think when you think about role of expertise in your daily life, I think having a point of view about the space and having a circle of influence is going to be, in my opinion, as important as your resume. So I think as you think about what it is you're passionate about in the digital space, start sharing that information out. Have a point of view online, get a circle of influence, and continue to build that and engage with those engage with those people with your message, because that's what we do at the end of the day, and it's starting to be more and more prevalent.
I think when I came to the IMC program, we called it T-type people. Very, very deep in one area, but with wide arms. And I always likened it to having hobbies. There's a lot of stuff I like. Like I like music, and I like television, I like movies, I like sports cars, and I'm functionally knowledgeable in all these things. But there are certain things that I know a lot about that I probably shouldn't be talking about on stage, but the same translates to your career. There's probably one thing, or maybe it's two things, that you just know everything about. You will read hours on end about this one subject, but you're also conversant in things that are kind of related, but not really central to your expertise. And I think that that's really the gist of it.
I got really scared when you talked about clout scores because that's so, to me, so very limiting. Many of us do a variety of different things and don't necessarily register on clout. So I would hope that if that's something that someone's interviewing you on, that you have more of a multifaceted background and whatnot than just your clout score. Obviously, if you're working in the digital space and you're looking to work in one of our industries, you want to be engaged in the things that it is that you're talking about. I had a team member of mine, we were building digital strategies for a client and wasn't able to be conversational about any of the digital channels that we were talking about. So that was a learning moment to say to him, why are you in this industry if you haven't spent the time to understand the industry? So that's different though than being just rated on whether or not Clout decides to give you some points because you tweeted a lot or your tweets got retweeted or something like that, because that's so subjective, and Clout is still, in my estimation, a tool that's not the end-all be-all. It's evolving and growing and changing, and so just be prepared broader.
Now we've got a real conversation going. So on that same idea on clout, I'm going to admit to something that I should never admit to. I am a cheat. I have whenever I see my clout score starting to drop, all I have to do is go onto Facebook, post something about politics, post something about religion, and 2 or 3 days later, right back up again. So I take clout exactly. I take it with a grain of salt. It is. We have all heard those horror stories about someone not being hired, being turned down for not having a clout score or for even not knowing what clout was. So it is something to pay attention to, but it is not something to necessarily extol on.
I'll interview you without a clout score.
Well, and I wasn't saying that. I wasn't saying that clout is anything. I just bring it up because it's something that is new in the past year or two that wasn't a factor years ago. And I only bring it up to keep it in mind because those things are starting to be part of the hiring conversations, and maybe not everywhere and maybe not the only factor, but it is good to keep that in mind because there is no doubt that a circle of influence plays a role in your life and who you are. So as you think about what role expertise plays and how you want to master that, clout is one way to measure it, not the only way, and there's definitely a variety of factors that go into hiring decisions for many agencies. It's just one thing that I wanted to bring up as.
Well, on behalf of all of us here at Medill IMC, thank you to each and every one of you. This has been an awesome conversation, and we really, really appreciate it. Thank you very much. The fascinating thing about this topic of audience engagement is the diversity of players who are involved in this idea of connecting customers with brand through meaningful engagement, both in terms of the idea and how, where, when, and how that idea is presented, is fascinating. So the fact that we literally have so many points of view to share with you that we had to do it in 2 panels is just amazing. So what we are going to do is follow the similar format from the last panel, but I'm going to pepper in a few different questions so that you can get some compare and contrast and some new information. So I hope you're okay with that format. And for those of you who just recently joined us, you're on a blind test drive, so that's fine. And for those of you who will hear, I'll try and stir it up a little bit. So as we did with the first panel, what I'm going to do is open it up and ask each one of you to introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about the company you work for, what they do, and then specifically your role in your organization. And then if I were to ask you to write an elevator speech on talents and skills that are required to succeed today in your industry, what would that elevator speech be? So we're just going to go from closest to furthest.
All right, I'll go first. Hi, my name is Art Zambianchi. I'm a media executive. That's what I call myself these days. I probably have the best example or model on how the industry changes, because I've constantly looked for jobs and changed my career as the market has changed. So I started out, I'm an IMC grad from way back in '94, and I started out when the internet began. And I joined the Leo Burnett media department, and then it became Starcom. And so I was a media research analyst, and then I went into traditional advertising and went into brand management, went to the client side, and then back again almost 20 years later. I just recently joined Mindshare as a media executive. So I would have never thought I would have wound up in media again, but as the industry changed, you know, I found myself at 37 years old working at DDB, no offense to DDBers, and going, am I going to be the last guy in Chicago making TV commercials? Can I make it to retirement? And that's what I would challenge you. Can you make it to retirement with your skill set? And I think you have to think about continually changing that. So that's sort of my brief path from agency to agency and discipline to discipline, even client side, and then back to media. If I tell you a little bit about my responsibilities, I'm typical client service, but on the media side, I manage a couple of accounts, mainly BP in the U.S. And if I had to give the elevator speech in terms of what we look for, how to make it in the biz, I would say three things that I've always looked for. I think fundamentally, whether I was in an ad agency, whether I was at Motorola on the client side, or at Mindshare, which is creativity, flexibility, and resourcefulness. Those are the three things. You got to roll with the punches. You're only as good as your ideas, and you got to find a way to get it done. That's it.
Hi, my name is Scott Neslin, and like Art, I'm also a media guy, going way back when. I was with Leo Burnett 2 Media, and then also when it spun out into Starcom. My whole career has been in media. Traditionally, it has been in what we would call holistic or 360 media. In the last few years, I focused my career more on just digital advertising, because that's where I think the future is, and not only for myself but for the advertising business in general. I work for a company called Centro. We are an independent digital technology agency based here in Chicago, just 10 years old. I run the media and agency operations, and basically we help agencies do media buying better than they currently do it today, and that's through our technology platform and managed services. In terms of how I would describe in an elevator speech the successful talent that you need for the future and coming out in the next couple of years, I think it's passion, strongly coupled with data and analytics. I have never seen in the area of advertising and communication a drive and a need for data management like we have today. But yet, if you don't have a passion for creativity, if you don't have a passion for what you do from a marketing standpoint, I think all that data gets lost. So I think the two coupled together make a success story for any one individual and certainly for a company.
Hi, my name is Krista Chavez. I'm a media supervisor on the Carnival Cruise account, which is obviously a fun account to work on. My path has been solely, born in the digital world. I started out a couple of years ago, about 5 years ago, at a digital shop. So I feel like it's kind of unique in that a lot of people within the industry that have been, I would say, in advertising or media for more than like 6 years, most people have kind of dabbled in both. But I'm all digital all the time, and I love that because, with digital you do have a certain amount of accountability that you're able to have that you can't have within TV or newspaper, which is sort of a double-edged sword. It's great because you can show your value by being able to quantify what you're doing. On the other hand, you have to quantify what you're doing, and for new and emerging technologies, I know someone mentioned in the last panel, that can be a little bit difficult. In terms of the skill set that's really important, I think creativity, obviously huge. I think one of the biggest things in addition to that is being able to manage, and not just manage from a high level as like an executive, being able to manage from the entry level, being an assistant planner, managing your resources, managing your time, managing the people around you. Within media, you work with a very broad group of people with different skill sets in different departments, whether it's analytics, creative, account. Everyone has really different personalities, and I think you have to be able to play nice and work with all of those people in order to be successful in your position. And then in addition to that, communication. You have to be able to communicate all those wonderful ideas that you have. If you're not able to do that, it's a little bit hard to kind of move forward with anything and kind of show your value.
Hi, I'm Matt Horton. I'm an associate media director at Razorfish, so we're a pretty heavy media group here so far. I work primarily on the Home Shopping Network account. And I think the great thing about Razorfish, and one of the things we think about as an agency is that while we are a media department, we think of things holistically from a digital marketing standpoint. So it's not just being part of a specific department, it's how can you collaborate with other groups within the agency and really create a consumer journey and experience by kind of grounding that in what the consumer insights are. So I think regardless of what path you take, you're always going to interact with different groups, and you get that chance to share your expertise, but also be part of something larger. I think that being said, when you think about the skills and kind of that elevator speech of what's necessary, there's a couple things that come to mind for me. First, it's kind of an inherent curiosity. I think just in the digital world in general, so many things are always changing that you have to be curious about what's happening and how does that change? How does that impact the business I'm working on? How is my client going to react to that? And then there's also a flexibility aspect to it. So someone that can really roll with the punches and be able to, one day show up to work and think you're going to have a defined schedule of what you're doing, but the client can completely derail that. So I think you have to be able to be flexible and really go with that and not let it set you off or, derail you completely that you can't focus. Because otherwise I think ultimately that's the nature of our business, and you almost set yourself up to fail if you can't do that sometimes.
Hi, I'm Justin Hood. I'm Digital Platform Director at DDB. That's a made-up title. I was in essence born digital, so I came from sort of a technology background way back in the day, and I lived through the first cowboy days of what this was before it was even called digital. I think it was called the internet or something like that. And what's exciting right now is that we're in those cowboy days again. I don't know if anybody's really noticed. I think we've noticed. You guys are right here right now, so you can't possibly notice that. But back in the day, it was really about sort of pulling yourself up, figuring the space out. For example, worked at a digital agency called Giant Step, which was part of Leo Burnett, is now ARC. We hosted UnitedAirlines.com, right? Like, why would you do that? You've got the cloud. You've got all sorts of things to do with that now. So we've changed now where you can actually have an idea, you can execute on that idea, you can create amazing things, and you've got all these tools to do it. And so there are no rules right now, and so it's a great period to sort of be exploring in this environment. DDB, we foster that sort of creative ideation process, and we think it's obviously critical that the people coming in have amazing ideas. The one thing, and I would just sort of back up what everybody else said, the one thing that I want to hit home is what you said about sort of being able to roll the punches. I would say having a thick skin is critically important, right? You need to be in love with your ideas, and then you need to be able to cheat on them pretty seriously. You need to be able to divorce them. You need to be able to not talk to them ever again, because that's the nature of this business, right? You will get knocked down by the client. You'll get knocked down by the agency. You will find out there are absolute reasons you can't do that, whether it's budget, whether it's legal, whether it's whatever. And that should not keep you from continuing to have good ideas. So I would say, to add to what everybody else has said, thick skin and be able to rebound from that is critically important.
Great. I have a zinger of a question, so I hope you guys don't mind, but I think you're ready for it, and it's a two-part question. One of which is the term IMC, Integrated Marketing Communications, is thrown around in the industry a lot. And here at Medill, we have a very strong point of view as to what it is. We've built a whole curriculum around it. So here is the two-part zinger question. One is, what or how does your company talk about IMC? Number one. And then number two, you have a room full of soon-to-be IMC grads from Medill Northwestern University. What would you expect for these grads to have with their masters in IMC that you wouldn't see from some other candidate? See, I told you it was a zinger. Anyone can start.
Anybody want to start with this one? I'll take it first. Actually, you take it first.
I mean, the term IMC actually has been around since the late 1990s, so it isn't a new term in the industry. It's one that everyone embraces in philosophy, but does not practice in reality. And that's because the areas of service in the advertising industry tend to be incredibly siloed. If you look across what each of us do up here, it's a piece of the puzzle. But I don't know if any of us, you might come the closest, Art, actually has more of the puzzle, but you don't have the creative piece. So, and that's not a slam against anyone up here on, it's a reality of how the industry, to the point that's already made up here, has to work together because there is not one agency, there is not one organization that has all marketing services that an advertiser needs under one roof. And there used to be a philosophy that the ad agencies had back in the 80s, and it was under one roof, you can do it all here. And that's because the menu of marketing services that you needed as an advertiser to be successful with consumers was pretty short. You needed a message, you needed a media, placement opportunity or services, and then you needed some other things around the side with that, but they were relatively small. The landscape, and this is due to digital, has grown tremendously in the last 15 years. And that's why you see more specialization in the industry. So in terms of how we do it at Centro, we don't acknowledge or we don't try to claim that we do it. We try to figure out what our piece of the puzzle is. We do that niche incredibly well. But what we expect our employees to know is how the whole picture comes together. And I think more and more you're seeing in the industry, and what you expect from people coming out of a program like yours is to have that broad scape knowledge of what an IMC plan looks like, but then they have to have deep vertical knowledge on what they do best or their company does best to contribute to that total picture.
I would say one of the, over the years, one of the failures of integrated marketing in the industry, and you touched on it a bit, was I think the agencies and the holding companies embraced it from an operational standpoint. So if I bought a digital agency, if I bought a promotional agency, or I tried to put everything under one roof, I was integrated, and that wasn't necessarily true. They never embraced it philosophically. They never really understood what they were trying to accomplish from a sort of marketing standpoint. They knew how to do it, or they thought they knew how to do it operationally. So integrated marketing as a term has changed so many times. When I came out of the program, it was a set of skill sets that were innovative and dynamic in 1994, and now they're regular practice. So, you know, I would say what I expect from you guys coming out, and if I saw that degree on your resume, is that you're going to keep that holistic view of the purity of what it is and strive for it, because again, philosophically, it's a mindset. The tools change. I'd say the one constant, which for Mindshare, what we practice, you can talk about 360 and you hear all the terminology around integrated marketing. I would say that the one thing we always try to keep constant, I think through all the years, has been customer centricity. That's been the one thing that's probably been the most successful in achieving integrated marketing. If you have that one constant, that one fundamental piece, for us in comms planning, it's the customer journey. For someone else, it might be something else, but it's always sort of at the heart of everything we do. Whether it's, you know, CRM, direct response, advertising, whatever it might be from a channel perspective, it's always that customer centricity. I sort of kept that integration piece going philosophically. So.
Yeah, no. I think I would agree with both of those points. I mean, I think IMC from a very high level, it's a great philosophy. And I think when it comes to activation at agencies, in all honesty, agencies have struggled a little bit with that because it's not a perfect world of always being integrated. But I think to that point, different clients have different needs, and integration means different things to different clients. So it's not always this perfect definition of what is integration, what does integrated marketing mean. It's going to vary by client, and it's also going to vary how you work with clients. And I think as you think about someone that comes in with that skill set, it's really about being able to work with, at Razorfish, we are specifically digital, but we work with a ton of different agencies. So whether it's an in-house creative shop somewhere or an offline agency somewhere else, there's integration happening, and that piece that is overall creating a larger integrated marketing strategy. We're just not always doing that as one big group as Razorfish, but it is for a client. So I think it becomes to what both of these guys are saying. It's starting to think about it as not only a philosophy, but how does it come together, and how do we activate that for our clients? Because it's not always going to be a perfect situation of this is what we learned. Again, I guess it goes back to me beating a dead horse of being flexible and rolling with the punches, because it does change on every client, and every project can be different.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that you guys can probably bring to the table is a disruption of maybe a stagnated or dinosaur mentality. When you are in an agency that serves a particular purpose for too long, you end up getting completely siloed there, and you end up forgetting that there are other aspects and other channels and other important roles that other agencies play in this process. The other thing that's really important as you leave here is, digital is obviously top of mind and what everybody sees as where everything is moving, and we're seeing ad spend sort of shift dramatically towards that realm. But it's important to keep in mind that, depending on your client, other channels may be doing very well for them are not going to go away. For example, like I work on McDonald's pretty much all of my day, every day. And out-of-home and terrestrial radio, believe it or not, work well for McDonald's, and it's because of this idea of that final 5 minutes to purchase, right? So seeing a billboard or actually hearing something on terrestrial radio actually works on McDonald's side. That is not to say that McDonald's is heavily invested in digital because it works for them, but to keep in mind that all of these channels are of equal importance, as well as all of those agency functions, I think are important. I think, again, it's what you guys can bring to the table because it's all fresh in mind for you guys, whereas those that are at the agencies for too long end up getting really particular about the stuff that they're working on.
Yeah. I'll keep it short and sweet since I think these guys have kind of covered it really well, but I'll just note that I think, integration can also just be in awareness of everything else going on. I think, like you said, sometimes you're in a silo and you're kind of locked in your own little world, thinking that's the most important thing, when really there are all these other different channels and vehicles and types of campaigns that are happening that may be impacting what you're doing, and conversely, you may be impacting what they're doing. So by positioning yourself in a way that you're working with other groups and other teams, whether they're in your agency or not, you're not only helping yourself learn more, but you're also showing your client that you're able to be a team player, and you can help yourself be included in some of those larger conversations, whether it be, creative conversations or strategy conversations. So you're just making yourself that much more valuable. I think. Great.
Okay. One thing that fascinated me, many of you went on your journey in an unexpected way, and you had very diverse experiences along the way that got you to where you are. When we look at our students come from very diverse experience bases, and then they make a decision to take a break and come here and study. What advice would you have for them in terms of how to talk about their prior experiences that may look a bit disassociated from the job that they're applying for today? Because it seems like all of you have very eclectic backgrounds. What advice would you give to them in terms of how to talk about their diverse experiences?
Yeah, I think definitely, especially within the media world, because it's kind of like a mishmash of people. I think everyone has, people are coming from journalism, they're coming from communications, they're coming from jobs that have nothing to do with media. So I think being able to speak to things that you've done in the past that don't tie back to media, that's definitely the norm, and we expect that. And I think part of that is being able to think about those things, whether it's, I don't know, something that could be a hobby even, and being able to relate a skill set within that may apply to media. So for example, maybe you worked in a retail store, being able to say you're able to communicate and upsell and speak to clients in a way that shows that maybe your skills weren't within a business setting, but they show that you have the ability to have those interpersonal skills and be able to relate to people in a way that is meaningful. I think that's really important. I think also with media, a big part of it is personality. So by being able to speak to yourself on a more personal level, people can kind of get a feel of how you operate and how you work. And I think because in media and advertising in general, not just media, you're working really, really closely with the people on your teams and people on other teams. So dynamic and personality, those are definitely things that come into play. So just being able to be yourself and kind of showcase how you like to operate, what types of situations you've been successful in the past, I think those are really, really big.
I think that something that's really important is that you have these past experiences, and you have this stuff that's sort of outside of the world you're in now and the world that we're in, and those are the things that you're going to need to continually tap to actually be the target market. Because believe me, once you step into these shoes, you're no longer the target market, and it's so hard to actually extract yourself. There is a huge echo chamber that goes on in the advertising industry, and I can't remember who did this amazing infographic about the realities of engagement in ads and recall of ads and all of this stuff, and the giant difference between advertising people and everybody else that you're trying to sell products to. So in order to sort of keep your grounding, I think it's important to remain faithful to the things that you did outside of this in order to be able to put on that mindset when you are creating or when you are ideating towards something for that particular target audience. I mean, we have tons of data that we're able to look at, but when it comes right down to it, you're trying to engage in a human way with other human beings at a point where potentially they don't want to be engaged with at all. And so you need to go back to that person that was you before all of this to figure out how to best engage in those people. And I think that's what would be effective in using that.
Great. A different line of questioning here. Once we leave the building, we still need to feed our minds. And we're curious, what resources do you go to? So if you were to name your top 3 resources that you go to on a regular basis to stay smart, what are those? I would like all of you to answer this.
Wow. I mean, I'm a very traditional guy. So I'm sort of focused on the very traditional media outlets. I honestly don't spend a lot of time in the marketing world, in Ad Age and eMarketer and those kind of things. Although they are important to get a little bit of information from, I think in order to remain grounded, you need to remain in the place of good sort of journalistic reporting to understand what's going on in the world and understand the impact. So I'm talking about obviously the Times. I'm talking about Wall Street Journal. I'm talking about these things. I would, if you need to have an 80-20 rule, I would say use about 20% of the time that you go to these things as maybe those very specific, targeted, places of information that speak to our industry and the things going on in our industry. But I would spend the vast majority of that time, the 80%, going to the places that are very traditional in terms of journalistic integrity, in terms of the content that's put out there. And that's the other thing that's going to keep you grounded with what that target market is. If you are so heavily focused on what's going on inside of your industry, you will quickly not have a clue as to what's going on with the real world, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I would actually agree with that, and I'm pretty traditional too in that I don't look to tons of different outside sources. I really, the key like Ad Age, Media Post, those are really like my sources of information. But I think then specifically working in media, where there is a difference, is a lot of our job is meeting with different vendors and understanding what the new technologies are. So it's really getting an understanding of that marketplace as a whole by meeting with those people and meeting with competitors to understand, how do each of these stack up against each other to really have a grasp of the market? Because so much of what we do then is based on what are those people doing and who's talking to our clients, how do we provide a point of view for them?